dark cherry, blueberry, Concord grape, pomegranate, and acai berries. We've blended these 5 superfruits into one refreshing, powerful, and delicious supplement. Reserve. Each fruit in Reserve was specifically selected for its antioxidant level, nutrition profile, and great taste. And then boosted with aloe vera, grapeseed, and green tea extracts, and Reserve's most influential ingredient, resveratrol. This heart-friendly polyphenol has been the subject of decades of research and gained a worldwide reputation. Proven protection. CAP-E laboratory tests showed that Reserve may enter and protect red blood cells from free radical damage. Reserve is the perfect combination of 5 superfruits, heart-friendly resveratrol, and other scientifically studied ingredients into one refreshing, powerful, and delicious supplement. Reserve. It's vitality reserved for you.
Wow, I always get excited watching Jeunesse videos. They are award-winning videos after all. You can find this video and other award-winning media from sharejeunesse.com. To help tell us more about this super product, I'd like to introduce our speaker for tonight, Jeunesse's scientific advisor, Dr. Donna Antarr. Dr. Antarr has always had a passion for both science and helping people feel naturally healthy and strong. She graduated from the New York City High School of Performing Arts and was a professional ballet dancer throughout college and medical school. After graduating summa cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts, she turned down acceptance to Harvard and Johns Hopkins Medical Schools in favor of the University of California, San Diego School of Medicine, one of the country's top medical schools, as the school has a physically active culture and healthy outdoors lifestyle. Dr. Antarr also has a master's in exercise physiology and is certified by the American College of Sports Medicine as an exercise specialist. Her practice has always focused on prevention and rejuvenative medicine. This includes educating her patients in proper diet, physical activity, and the correct use of nutritional supplements. Prior to joining Jeunesse Global, she served as the only female physician on the scientific advisory board of a billion-dollar health and wellness company. Using the feeling great weight concept her practice embodied, she performed a preclinical trial for the company's weight loss product. As Vice President of Product Training and Development for a nutrition company, she published original research on stem cell nutrition. Today, we are proud to have her in our Jeunesse family. Let's put our virtual hands and thumbs up together to warmly welcome Dr. Donna Antarr. Hi, Dr. Antarr. A warm welcome. Thank you so much for being on Jeunesse Live with me tonight. Before we get started on your sharing about the power of resveratrol, may I ask you some question about Jeunesse's star product, the Reserve?
That would be great.
Thank you so much. Now, we saw several superfruits being introduced in the video earlier. Can you outline some of the main ingredients in Reserve and their benefits to our body?
Absolutely. Well, you're going to hear about resveratrol in more detail, but that is one of the main ingredients. So there's also aloe vera, grapeseed extract, green tea extract, and 5 superfruits. And those are pomegranate, blueberry, dark cherry, acai, and grape, the dark skin of the grape. So that is what combines together in a gel, because especially resveratrol doesn't do so good as being absorbed if it's in a powder or dry. It does better when it's in a liquid form, which is why we put it in a gel. And in nature, most things are synergistically put together. They're not just individual, which is why it's especially good that you have all of those other superfruits and aloe vera and things like that, and the green tea extract that give the synergy that comes with Reserve.
Thank you, Dr. Antarr. I think everybody loves Reserve. It's probably, our number one go-to item in the beginning of the day. So thank you so much for summarizing what the ingredients are and the benefits. Also, having known about Reserve And also out there, like what you mentioned, that resveratrol is being sold maybe in the pill form, but what we have in Jeunesse is a very special gel form. Can you tell us if this formula of Reserve is proprietary to Jeunesse?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Awesome. Good to know that. All right. So we see that Reserve, all right, inside resveratrol, all right, is a key ingredient, all right, and it's done with superfruits, and its most influential ingredient is resveratrol, as what Dr. Antarr mentioned, which brings us to our topic for tonight, and I'm very excited about it. It's called the Power of Resveratrol. And Dr. Antarr, please tell us more about this ingredient, how it works, and its benefits for the human body.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That was, by the way, such a wonderful introduction. I'm so happy to be here with all of you tonight or in the morning, whenever you watch it. I'm sure most of you, if we were like live with a live audience, I could ask you, how many of you know that red wine is good for you? Well, usually the whole audience raises their hand, because that is something that is out there because of the French paradox. Why people in France who drink quite a bit of red wine, now not white wine, doesn't do as good or at all, but the red wine has resveratrol. Now, other things have resveratrol too, but red wine is one of the most, depending on the wine, most potent. So for example, all the different grapes, and it's the skin of the grapes that have the resveratrol. Dark fruit, even dark vegetables have resveratrol. So all of these things are very good for you. So I have apples in that picture. One of the reasons I have apples in that picture is because I want to talk a little bit about antioxidants, of which resveratrol is an amazing antioxidant. So for example, everybody knows that if you cut an apple and you just leave it out, it what? Turns brown, right? Well, why does it turn brown? It's because it's a process called oxidation. Just like if you leave something out that's metal, that's not rust proof, it also oxidizes and gets rust. Well, it's kind of the same in our body. Oxygen is good. On the other hand, oxygen is bad. The way the body works, things have to be in balance. So you want there not to be so much oxidation, or what's known as oxidative stress. You want there to be just the right amount so that your body doesn't get damaged. Now, one of the things that's very important about resveratrol and the other ingredients in Reserve is that, and we'll talk about this in a little more detail in just a few minutes, is that those antioxidants can actually get into and penetrate a live cell. Why is that important? Because especially our DNA, everybody knows what DNA is. It's that picture of a ladder that looks twisted, right? And that picture, that DNA is what makes us us. It gives some people dark hair, it gives some people light hair, it gives some people blue eyes, brown eyes, tall, short. It also has genes in the DNA that help our health or our not health. Okay, so it's not just physical characteristics that our DNA does, but it's also a lot about our health. So why is it so special that the antioxidants like resveratrol can get into and protect live cells? Well, you might not realize it. I don't know if you've ever seen a picture like this, but this is actually what a cell membrane looks like. So all of our cells in our body have this membrane around them, and it keeps all the things that are cellular inside. And that's very, very important. But as you can see, it's very complicated. It has channels, it has what they call a lipid bilayer, it has little carbohydrate chains. All of these things are very vital and also not so easy to go through unless it's made to do that. And why is that important? Because if your antioxidant can't get into the live cell by going through this very complicated lipid bilayer of the cell membrane, it can't protect us. It can't protect our cells, and it especially can't protect our DNA. which is one of the most vital parts of the cell's components. So I want to show you just a brief little video. There it is. So we're like gonna dive into a cell. We're gonna shrink way down, become a little miniature person, and we're gonna go into this cell. So now we're inside the cell. Now, do you see those little white things that are just flying around that look like meteors? Well, those are the free radicals, and they're just flying around. And when they hit things, they hurt them, they damage them. Now, what you're seeing now is the nucleus. That's the center of the cell. And they have little pores. So we're diving in. What you're looking at that looks like rope is the chromosome, which is your DNA makes chromosomes. Okay, you get some chromosomes from your dad and some chromosomes from your mom. So now we look at the DNA, and you can see that those free radicals are hitting the DNA, and boom, right there, it broke part of the DNA. This is not what we want. So this is why we want the antioxidants that counteract those free radicals to be able to get inside the cell so that they are able to do that. So how do we know that Reserve and Resveratrol is able to get into our live cells? Well, it's because we did a test called CAP-E. And CAP-E is a nutritional test that can actually tell how strong your antioxidant is, but not just how strong it is in a test tube, but how strong is it inside a live cell. Now, when we first started Jeunesse, we did this test to make sure this product was amazing, right? Well, now it's, 10 years later? And we did another test. This April of 2020, we retested our Reserve to make sure that it was as potent, as awesome as it was when we first started the company. And of course, no real surprise, it is. It is just as good. So now we have two tests that show that. And what I'm showing here in this little diagram is kind of how the test works. So you have red blood cells. Red blood cells, they're in a little test tube or a dish, and so they're live cells, okay? Now you put the test product. Now in our case, the test product is what? Reserve. So you have them sort of incubate or, just kind of bathe in our Reserve. Now what happens is all the antioxidants in Reserve, including the resveratrol, are going into, they're getting absorbed by the red blood cells. So in the next thing, when we wash off the red blood cells and we put a dye into that same little bath, that dye is meant to, it has a property that it fluoresces, it glows really bright when oxidative stress is applied to it. So if all of our antioxidants stayed on the outside of the red blood cells and we put that dye and then we made oxidative stress, it would glow like crazy. But if most of the antioxidants go into the cell, then it doesn't glow so much. And that's how the CAP-E test is looked at. That's how they get the numbers that they get. And it was, like I said, designed by a specific independent lab. This is not something we do. This is something that an independent lab does. So we have nothing to do with it. We can't make it better or worse, okay? So what we've shown is our ability to get those antioxidants into the live cells of the red blood cells is way above just standard. And that's how you know it can help with what I showed you in that little diagram. Now, like I said, everybody knows red wine is good for you. There's a resveratrol molecule for you. And by the way, other things, so if you want to know what else can I eat, of course you want to eat Reserve because it's a very powerful source of resveratrol, but dark grapes, peanuts, and my favorite, dark chocolate. So isn't that fun? Red wine, dark chocolate, and Reserve. So it is amazing. And besides being, and also while it's being an antioxidant, how does that help us? How does that help our body? What does that do for us? Well, number one, they have found that the antioxidant resveratrol is extremely heart healthy, very healthy for your heart, the vessels, everything like that. So they've already shown that. So that's a good thing. And then what's the other thing? This is a three-dimensional drawing of what is called a sirtuin gene. So it is one of the genes on the DNA strand in our body. Now, what's a sirtuin gene? Sirtuin is a family of genes that have many, many metabolic effects on the body and very important for our bodies staying healthy. And so when they are active, that's a good thing for our body's health. And what they found is that resveratrol has a tendency to help or support the sirtuin genes be more active because they tend to get less active as we get older. So there you have that. Now, when you look at this slide, so other benefits that we have, because there are so many, of resveratrol. So if you look at this picture, what it's depicting is a person who doesn't look very happy, and those bright spots on their body is to depict areas of inflammation that is more than it should be. So let me just give you a little primer, a little information that you might not know about inflammation. One, like so many things in the body, it's a balance. You cannot have too little inflammation because otherwise your inflammation in a certain amount is what helps us kill off bacteria, things like that. Inflammation does that. So we need it, but we also don't need too much, because when we have too much inflammation, what happens is that inflammation starts to be a problem in and of itself and starts to cause damage when it was in the right amount, it actually helped the body. So you can see there's a very delicate balance of inflammation in the body, and the key is to maintain a healthy amount of inflammation, and that is what we can do with resveratrol. Now, where do we get this inflammation? So besides when inflammation comes out because it's meant to protect us, how do we get this inflammation that's too much? Well, not surprisingly, things like age, which you can't really do anything about, so that's out of our hands. But then there's toxins, which sometimes we can do something about. Sometimes, depending on where we live, we can't. So there's that. But there is something we can do a lot about, and that is our diet. And here is the difference in the kinds of foods that we eat. So, for example, foods that help to maintain a healthy amount of inflammation is things like avocados, olive oil, salmon, berries, strawberries. I mean, I don't have to tell people what are the healthy foods. I also don't have to tell people what are the foods that cause too much inflammation, because if it's bad for you, it probably causes too much inflammation. So, for example, sugar, French fries, artificial sweeteners. Don't forget about artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners, like the little yellow packets, the little blue packets, the little pink packets, they are not innocuous, meaning they are not harmless. They are harmful, all in different ways, but this is why Jeunesse doesn't use artificial sweeteners in our products. Now, what else? I want to just say something on processed meats, because processed meats are anything that is cured or smoked, things like that. So you want to stay away from them. I didn't even realize this. I knew it was bad for you, but the WHO, the World Health Organization, has declared processed meats carcinogenic. So this is a World Health Organization that already tells us that this is a super bad food. So stay away from those kinds of foods, steer toward those anti-inflammatory foods, and now you have a healthy level of inflammation in the body that resveratrol can help to maintain, can help to keep the body in that great state with, for example, those wonderful dark grapes. And remember, it is the skin. What makes the wine, I said both words together. What makes the wine red is that the dark skin, it is what is where the red color comes from. That's why there's very little resveratrol, if any, in white wine. Okay, so what else does resveratrol help? Well, my gosh, it is one of the few nutrients that can cross what is known as the blood-brain barrier. Blood-brain barrier. What is that? Well, it's there to protect us, to protect our brain from things getting into our brain that shouldn't be there. But what should be there is nutrients like resveratrol. So it can cross into the blood-brain barrier, therefore have a positive effect, have that antioxidant effect, right, that powerful antioxidant effect right there in our brain cells. Now, what are these blobby things? Guess what? They're fat cells. And there's not huge human studies yet, but there is some in vitro studies, meaning studies done outside the body, done in labs, that have shown that resveratrol has some ability, and now we just need to figure out if it's completely there in a human body, but it does have an ability to stop fat cells from making more fat cells. Kind of a good thing. So that also is a healthy thing about resveratrol. So you can see resveratrol has so many benefits for our body. It's no wonder that people love it and that we have such an amazing product with Reserve and the resveratrol. Now, what is it about the way we make it? Well, here's our whole gastrointestinal tract, right? So what's easier, some nutrients, it doesn't matter whether they're dry or liquid. They'll absorb the same amount either way, okay? But for resveratrol, which is what we're really talking about here, it kind of does matter, because to get through the inside of all of our little tubes, which is the intestines, to go into the blood and then into the cells and all those things, it does it better when it's in a liquid form, which is why we put our Reserve in these little gel packs. Now, I know you see them on the screen, but I just wanted to make sure you knew how big they were, because it's hard to tell if you've never seen one in the slide. So this is what is so amazing, and really there are hundreds and hundreds of studies, because people are so interested in all of the benefits, scientists are, all of the benefits of resveratrol. So there we have that. And I want to just remind you, it's about balance. I've showed you, you cannot lay on the couch, eat fried food and processed meat and take resveratrol and think you're okay. Can't do that. It's a balance. And resveratrol in Reserve is there to add extra, because we can't do it with just what we can eat. That's my opinion. I believe we have to add the supplement to our diet so that our body can really stay in balance and be as healthy and feel as great as it can. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Antarr. Every time I listen to your training, I learn something new. So it's so amazing what you've shared about the power of resveratrol, and in additional knowledge that our Reserve has gone through a more recent third-party CAP-E test showing its high resveratrol potency. This is really good to know, especially when we go out into the field and then in the marketplaces to inform people again, and also informing us of the inflammatory and anti-inflammatory foods. I did not know that processed meats, were actually so dangerous for us. And also I love that you shared about how resveratrol can pass through our blood-brain barrier. So this is something that I did not know about resveratrol as well. So thank you. I always learn, additional stuff. I hope every one of you took down notes so that you can share it with many more people. If not, you can always watch our on-demand recording on JeunesseLive.events. Share this training by Dr. Donna Antarr to as many of your customers and business partners as possible. Now, while building my Jeunesse business in different markets, I sometimes get asked this question. Due to different country regulations, different countries may have slightly different ingredients in the reserve. How does Jeunesse ensure that amount of resveratrol stay the same? And I would love that, Dr. Antarr, if you answer that question for everybody.
Absolutely. That's a really good question, because how do we know? Because so many different markets in the different countries and the different governments, even though scientifically it sometimes doesn't always make sense, they have different rules and we have to do things differently. Well, just like I showed you that resveratrol is in different types of food, it's also in different types of plants. Plants that you wouldn't necessarily just eat, like, but they're there. And so sometimes we have to use different kinds of plants to gain the amount of resveratrol to keep it consistent. And then what we do is we test it. We test to make sure that for every market, the amount of resveratrol is the same, no matter the manufacturer or the country.
Thank you so much. That is such a good assurance. So for those of you out there who are in different marketplaces, so you've got reserve, and you look at the back of the box with the ingredients, and the slight changes in the ingredients, as what Dr. Antarr has mentioned, reserve is tested, all right, inside Jeunesse itself to ensure whether it's from a different manufacturer or different ingredients inside, the resveratrol content is always the same. Dr. Antarr, I have another question for you. I've seen many good benefits from my consumers and business partners after having consumed reserve. What are some ways we can safely share testimonials about reserve in a compliant way?
Oh, that's another great question. Okay, you're just really good. This is another important thing. So many people have asked me, well, but why can't I talk about X medical problem that I might have had and now I don't have it as much, or I don't have it at all? It's true. It's what happened to me. Well, here's the deal. The government feels that if you talk about a supplement like a drug, then it is a drug. We don't want reserve to be a drug. We want it to stay a supplement. So what we need to do is make sure that when people are describing how reserve has been helpful to them and their health, that they don't talk about medical issues. In other words, a really good way to figure this out is, can a doctor like myself write a prescription for what you're talking about? If I can, it's most likely a medical condition, okay? So you don't want to talk about that. So how do you talk about what happens to you? Well, the way you talk about it is there's two things that you look at. What couldn't you do before you started taking reserve? What can you do now? So for example, before you started taking reserve, you walked up the stairs, but it was kind of slow, and it wasn't, you didn't enjoy walking up and down the stairs. But now you just bound up the stairs. You can go up the stairs 2 at a time. That is something that so many people can relate to, because you've described a what you couldn't do and what you can do. I just didn't have the energy. I didn't feel like playing with my kids or my grandkids before. Now, oh my gosh, I'm running after them, I'm picking them up, we're having a great time. And that's another thing people can relate to. And if that's true for you, you got to dig for what's true for you. Now, the other thing you want to look at is, how did you feel? How did you feel before you started taking reserve, and how do you feel now? So did you feel kind of just down or blah before you start taking reserve, and now you feel alert and happy and like motivated and that kind of stuff? Well, that's a how you feel way to look at it. And that, if you look at that, you can pretty much answer everything with those kinds of testimonials.
Thank you so much, Dr. Antarr. I think that's really important, especially for those of us who go out in the field and we get so excited because, where we find that, somebody comes back to us, whether it's our consumers or business partners, as what you mentioned, they always had this issue, and then they just share excitedly with us. We want to go out there and we talk about the health and stuff like that. But I completely understand, what you mentioned. And we do want people to see this as a food supplement that they can take it. Anybody can take it. So as more people are open to taking it. So that's where Dr. Antarr comes in, and she says to share it compliantly is talk about how you feel, the before and the after as well. So this is really good advice. Thank you. Now, I want to also like to share some helpful tips. All right, as you build your business, as you're starting out, and you might be wondering how to successfully share and build your Jeunesse business with the amazing product of Reserve. For me, I always have a sachet of Reserve. So what you can do is always, because as what Dr. Antarr mentioned, it's not really big. It's a very small sachet. You could have one or two inside your handbag or your bag, and then what you want to do is you want to consume it when you're around your friends or your family members or even your colleagues in workplace, at a good timing in the day, maybe it could be after lunch when you are just, you're feeling a bit lethargic, you open it up, you take it, and people are going to ask you about it. So that's where your door opens. Now, I also like to do this is to ask questions. Be curious about people's life. The more questions you ask, the more issues you might find out that is happening. Be really connected with people. Be curious about their lives, how they're doing. And if health-related issues come up with your potential prospects, maybe you're talking about their own family health or their own loved one's health, let them know what you consume and how it might help them. It's their choice whether they decide to try Reserve, but you have to share it with them, else they might never know about it. Another thing is I sometimes invite prospects into a Zoom power share where existing members are sharing how they've benefited from taking Reserve. So I would also invite and send out trainings like tonight. I mean, tonight is perfect because Dr. Donna Antarr talks so detailed about the power of resveratrol. And resveratrol, is found so potent inside our Reserve. So you want to invite them to watch trainings like this. We're going to have an upcoming training, another on the 23rd of July. All right. And then they will know more about the science and benefits of our products. All our products is based on science, and that's why we invite all of the scientific advisory board in Jeunesse to come and talk about the products. All right, so let's get to it. All right, I think for the lucky draw, let me just take a look. If it's been a great episode tonight. I'm so glad that we had so much great Reserve and resveratrol content, and it really makes me want to go get my Reserve right now. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is, of course, I'm going to just show you again that we will be having 5 lucky winners that will be walking away with 2 boxes of Reserve. All right. And we'll be posting the winners shortly after this Facebook Live. So do look out for it on our Jeunesse Global Facebook page. All right. After our live stream. Again, you can go onto our Jeunesse Facebook page. All right. If you're on our Jeunesse Live.events page, go onto our Facebook page, Jeunesse Global, find us there, and you might be one of our lucky winners. So thank you so much, Jeunesse, for their generosity. I want to thank everyone tonight for joining me and Dr. Donna Antarr. I really want to thank Dr. Donna Antarr for sharing the power of resveratrol. Remember that this training will be on demand at JeunесseLive.events. So share with your teams. Also, this Yes series takes place every second and fourth Thursday of the month from 6 to 7 p.m. in Eastern Time in 8 global languages. And the next one will be on 23rd of July with scientific advisors of Jeunesse, Luis Martinez and Christian Dupont, who will take you on a deep dive into the science behind NARA and Revita Blue on the topic Skincare Starts from Within. So if you benefit from tonight's sharing, give Dr. Donna Antarr a thumbs up, all right, into the Facebook page, in the comments page. Give her lots of hearts and likes and loves. Share this training tonight. Keep up to date by checking the calendar on the Jeunesse Live.events for future shows. Till next time, God bless you all.